And also like Grok, to be honest. I mean, there's a really hyped up like Grok 3 release coming, and I'm talking Grok with a K, so XAI's model, which has direct access to the Twitter data or the X data.
2025 is actually how good the coding agents have got. We talked about that the entire episode, so we'll not go into at length about that. But AI-assisted coding is now really coming together as a totally new workflow for coders that want to adopt it.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. It ties back to my second kind of reflection on the year, which is that this year, if 2022 was kind of like, oh wow, generative AI exists, 2023 was like, oh shit, we can do a lot of cool stuff in content generation with generative AI. And I think this year has been the shift of attention and efforts and improvements in agents. Plus AI will be better than just AI or just humans.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Co-Creating with AI, the last episode of the year. And of course, this is our journey exploring and understanding the fast-moving world of AI. Today, we're going to talk about summing up the year of 2024 and then doing some trend spotting for next year. And with me, as always, is Rasmus, my co-host. How are you today, Rasmus?
I'm good. I feel like I've had a Christmas cleaning on my task list. So it's really small right now, but it's never is. It's like even private stuff I've been able to kind of clean off. But I'm also having a daughter in the next few days. So I think I've had extra motivation to just...
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, soon. But free congratulations.
Yes, free congratulations.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm having a bit of a cold coming on, but good energy, and snow is back, and that's always just beautiful to decorate the landscape. Oh, so much better with a winter wonderland than rainy, dark Sweden.
Yeah, make snow great again.
Yes. So we are talking about summing up 2024 and then looking ahead to 2025. What are your impressions of this year, AI-wise?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think I'll add on others, but maybe we'll go one at a time.
Yes.
And then we'll have time to think instead of me having to like pick top three straight away. I think maybe my top one, and this might translate into prediction that may turn out to be wrong, but I'll say it anyhow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that there have been no God model, so to say. For me, this is the beginning of the death of the idea of the God model, which means one model that is the best at everything. So what I've seen is really a catching up across the board, and even a differentiation in what models are good at. If you look at Claude, GPT-4o, o1, in the image generation space, also video generation, they're good at different things. And also like Grok, to be honest. I mean, there's a really hyped up like Grok 3 release coming, and I'm talking Grok with a K, so XAI's model, which direct access to the Twitter data, sort of the X data. So I think that's like one of the first thing that's very, of course, heartening for my own business. So maybe I'm biased and maybe I'm projecting my own wishes, but that's what I'm like in the future. But that's what I'm seeing actually.
Yeah.
That, models have really differentiated and caught up. So it's not like everyone feels like, oh, OpenAI is years ahead.
No.
Some ways I'm feeling like, like we spoke about last time, like Anthropic is ahead.
Yes.
Many things.
Yeah.
So that leapfrogging continuously. And now, of course, you have needs from OpenAI with their general O1 and O1 Pro availability. But yeah, anyhow, I think that's my first kind of reflection on the year. What comes to mind for you?
So just to add on to that point, I really agree, and there has been signs of sort of flattening out. One sign is that there's no GPT-5, not even a GPT 4.5. There's more like this chain of thought model O1 from OpenAI which is sort of a sign that they haven't been able to put together a really strong contender for something they call GPT-5. Maybe that's coming next year. And then from Anthropic, their big release during the year didn't include a new Opus. Like they had 3 levels of models before: Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. And for some reason, they didn't manage to get Opus up to the standards they wanted. Sonnet is a really strong model, but that seems to be sort of a ceiling for what they could achieve this year. And that's not to say that things won't improve next year, but it's sort of flattening out in returns on investment. Although at the same time, Anthropic CEO said somewhere where I saw a quote that he thinks that models are not flattening out or the model development, but that our evals are not strong enough. So that it looks like in the benchmarks as if models are flattening out, but it's just the last few percentage of the evals are, or the evals are not able to actually measure the intelligence of the models.
I think that's actually a very interesting point, but it's also a little bit like, it could be true, and he's a very, very, very smart person, but it's also like, no, they are getting smarter. You're just not smart enough to check. So I think there's one interesting thing though. Like I want to put a cap, so I agree with you on that one. The only caveat I think is going to be interesting to see is Grok 3. Because they've trained on this 100,000 GPU cluster. They have most likely more data than anyone else because of X. I mean, anyone else, you would say Google and etc. But it seems like they're limited in how they can use YouTube, etc. It seems like everyone else is using YouTube but them, which is funny. I think that's so funny from a strategic point of view. So I'm going to put a caveat on that one until I see Grok 3, because that could be a huge step up. But I agree with that as a reflection over the year. Definitely do.
Cool.
Is that your first one, or do you have another one?
No, so that was just adding on to yours, maybe cheating. But so my biggest impression of 2025 is actually how good the coding agents have got. We talked about that the entire episode, so we'll not go into at length about that. But like AI assisted coding is now really coming together as a totally new workflow for coders that want to adopt it. And as a tiny add-on to that as well is that we have redefined what is meant to have an agentic AI. Because 1 year ago, if you were building an agent framework, you did multiple agents talking to each other, and right now that has completely disappeared because there's no added benefit to it. An AI agent is now a single model that just keeps working using tools or keeps working multiple steps on its own. That's agentic behavior now. A year ago, agents were working, collaborating, and maybe that was too early because it didn't work. It led to errors and didn't really bring any real user value. Maybe it's coming a year from now or 2 years from now instead.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. It ties back to it ties into my second kind of reflection on the year, which is that this year, if 2022 was kind of like, oh wow, generative AI exists, 2023 was like, oh shit, we can do a lot of cool stuff in content generation with generative AI. And I think this year has been the shift of attention and efforts and improvements in agents. So like this has been the year that the generative revolution became the agentic revolution. And of course, as I've said many times before, I believe that's where the vast majority of the value will lie for people and for businesses. But I think another way of spinning that is like, let's say that scaling laws don't hold in terms of like bigger compute clusters, more data doesn't make the model smarter, which is, what we just reflected on. Let's say that holds. Then, of course, the way everyone speaks about it now is now you have another scaling vector, which is inference time reasoning, inference time compute. And I think this is the interesting thing with like O1, like one way to frame O1, they say it's different. It's just they built their own agentic framework. Yeah, it just made GPT-4 into an agent. And that's probably not true to the fullest extent, right? But you could argue that you can do that yourself, and we're proving that with the for GPT-4o in an agentic framework. So I think for me the big thing this year has been that the scaling vector of intelligence is now inference time compute, or agents, if you want to say it in one word. That's like the biggest shift this year. I mean, I probably would put it like on top of the first one I said. It just came to mind first. And of course, that's where I think the vast majority of the value will be going forward. I think that very few AI tasks, so to say, like where AI is involved, will be non-agentic. Like there would be very few things where you want the model to not think before it speaks at all. Even if it thinks super quickly and says, hey, I don't need to do any chain of thoughts here because you're just asking me to write a blog post and I can do that in a one-shot way. Even if that's like the case, I think still people are going to interact with agents, not with LLMs.
Yeah.
Or interact with LLMs through agents is maybe the proper way to say it. That's probably my second one. Do you have any thoughts on that, or do you want to go into your next?
No, I think that's really fair, and it's a new paradigm, and I think that Chat GPT and chat interfaces will persist as well. But maybe, as you say, that you will actually chat with an agent that sort of diverts into a chain of using tools and so on, not keeping human in the loop on every step. So plus one on that one. So another thing that I've seen during 2024 is that there's been a lot of work on RAG. Like there's been so many different methods coming out, and different learnings and dissolutions and frameworks and so on. And what is apparent is that there's no big contender for the RAG as a service post. There are like vector databases that are releasing open source RAG frameworks that are more successful or more well known, like Pinecone's RAG solution. It's something they release for free so that people will use Pinecone more. And that's sort of the model that is actually more prevalent in RAG rather than a full RAG as a service solution.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think what we talked about, was it last episode or the one that drops today, about like model context protocol? I think that's like a final final proof point that apparently that layer of the stack got, I wouldn't say commoditized, but became open source, didn't capture any value. And I think that's going to be true for many layers of the AI stack. That initially they seem like they can capture value, but in the end they can't because it's not deep enough. It's not hard enough, that you need someone to build a huge service for it that you're going to use. And I think there's also potentially, I'm not sure here, maybe I'd love your opinion here actually. Some layers of the stack, latency is less important, and some, I would say, it's more important. And my gut feel is that when it comes to RAG, so pulling data, it needs to be extremely, extremely quick. So you can't really have external API calls for all of that. You need to be able to handle your ragging inside the house, so to say. But I'm not sure about that. That's more like a spontaneous.
And they are also the services that are RAG as a service contenders for Stone. They are extremely expensive. Like they have all during the year removed their free tier and are like solely enterprise because they're not able to offer or support. And maybe that's because it's very hard to get up and running out of the box. Maybe they need a hands-on approach for every customer, and that's why it's only enterprise and why price is high. But adding on to what you said about model context protocol, it ties into something that has started to appear a bit more, which is like the tools marketplaces. So there's one coming that has come up on my radar, which is called, I think, Composio, and they are offering like 200, 300 tools with integrations, and which is sort of mirroring what Model Context Protocol does for free, but they do it as tools, so you can plug them into models that doesn't support Model Context Protocol yet, like Openai's and Olama and everything that has the older sort of tool APIs or interface to access different services.
That's really interesting. I hadn't heard about Composio, but that ties in perfectly to my third point, which is, if we take one level deeper, if we say that we started off with like, hey, models are differentiating, right? And now we are like the opportunities, agents, inference time, compute. And how are these agents being able to do valuable things? Well, RAG has become really, really powerful and is maturing quickly. And the other part of this is tool use. So I think this was the year where tool use became, ChatGPT showed the way in one way with their plugins early, even though that didn't really take off. I think they should have doubled down, to be honest. But this year, we now have LLMs being able to use tools very, very well, and like reliably use them well with, a bunch of things like, constraining the output via, what do you call it? Like JSON, like enforcing JSON structure outputs.
Yes.
And now, of course, I think that, it's not replacing it, but like the peak of that almost is two things. It's what you've described with terms of Composio, which means you have a lot of tools like that for the agents. And the other one is computer use, which only Claude has released well so far, I think. No, I actually saw one more, Y Combinator startup, which means that now agents can use all your data, use all your tools, with integration, which is what Composio does, right? Or just by, using your computer, using a computer. So I think that's my third big reflection on the year. And these, of course, converge into very, very powerful setup for agents.
Yeah. And I should add that Composio adds one more layer to the mix, which is authorization. So if I'm interacting with an LLM that has Composio tools, and I ask them to connect to my Gmail, then Composio can authorize my Gmail inbox, and the LLM can get the tool to access my emails, and rather than only generic tools, it can be really personal data.
Yeah, that is really powerful if they've been able to generalize that in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And I think, didn't Model Context Protocol also have that for RAG? So they had built in management of auth for when you pull data. I don't remember. I think we spoke about it, or maybe not.
I don't think that the plain protocol handles that. But
okay.
So should we move on to the outlook for next year then?
Yeah, if you don't want to add a third one. We overlapped a lot.
So I can my third one can be a segue between 24 and 25 then, because I really see that what I really spent time on last winter with voice AI is now coming to fruition from a lot of different sources. Like we have the advanced voice API coming from Openai during the year, and it's not adopted yet because it's so extremely expensive. But that's my sort of the trend spotting for next year is that the voice interfaces will probably be made available for general use in a bigger way, and start to be used. And also, I think it is actually 11 labs that came out with a conversational API that does the same thing as the advanced voice, where it provides a really good conversational API for AI, for voice AI. And and another startup. There are a lot of startups in voice AI. I think I have a list of a dozen or so. But I saw another launch just yesterday called Waveform AI, and so they have not been adopted. I still feel like OpenAI's app is the only voice interface that I really use on a regular basis. And we have so many other AI interfaces where voice is not present. But I think that's my trend spotting for 2025, that we will see large adopting coming for voice AI.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think just from like our perspective, we've held off on that because it hasn't been primary to integrate voice, but we have already customers wanting it. And of course, if that's now available in like a really high quality way via API, via Level Labs, that's definitely going to be something we look into. So I think if I extrapolate like our situation on other, I guess, AI first companies, then I think that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, just imagine like the thing that was the first hype, or not first, but the first agentic hype, maybe, which is customer service, like first level customer service agents. Now going on the website, you don't even have to chat. You just press the voice, you talk to it, and it talks back.
Yeah.
And knows everything. I mean, how cool is that? Like, how amazing is that? That's like, compare that to waiting in a phone line to talk with someone who may or may not know your problem and may have to escalate it. Whereas you just directly get information. That's quite amazing in my opinion. So I agree. My first one, I have two, I think, for next year, but I'll start off. So I think the first one is that I think people will really start to appreciate human in the loop. Like the way I normally phrase it to like when I'm speaking to say investors or whatever, is that people overestimate intelligence. In the sense that everyone in AI sort of have this picture that you're going to get AGI, and AGI is going to be so smart. That's all you need. It can write your software on the fly. You won't need software. Maybe that's died a little bit now, because that's just a fundamental misunderstanding that software is collaborative generally. So then you need the same software to collaborate. But anyhow, and that it will figure out whatever the best way is to do something by its own because it's so smart. Just like, I guess if you had Einstein, right? He'd figure out all our strategic questions in our company like that, right? No, he wouldn't. He needs knowledge, he needs time to think, he needs experience. He probably needs to work together with other people. And I think that's like my big prediction, is that by the end of next year, people will have realized the potential of the agents, but they've also realized the limitations of agents. And one of the limitations is what I just said, like maybe the major one, which means that, as I normally say, like human plus AI will be better than just AI or just humans in every every job, at least, not necessarily every task. Some tasks will be better to just do with AI, and some tasks will be better to just do with people. But in every job, almost every job, that will be true, I think. That's my first one, I think.
So I can add on to that for my second trend spotting then, because I think I really believe in what you say about human in loop, but I also think that there will be an increased level of autonomy injected in the agentic paradigm. So we will keep talking to our agent workflows or writing to them and communicating. But they will increasingly check in with us rather than we driving the agent to keep working. And also we will check in with them more and more sparsely over time. Like even if I agree that humans can bring quality to the mix that the AI really can't, I also think that there will be an evolution towards a higher degree of autonomy, where for some tasks we will see human humans not being needed all the time, not every task execution. And also perhaps for the AI to start deciding which human should be in the loop at each time, and like who to bring in, rather than one single person driving the AI and or a team doing so, but to switch some of the decision making around. And I think Composio or some other startup has as a tool to bring in a human on the AI's decision, but I haven't seen that in use anywhere. I haven't experienced that at all, but I'm excited to see if that's gonna happen, if that's gonna be a first-hand experience for some of us during next year.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And that's, for me, it's just like the AI, the agents going from being junior interns or junior employees to senior employees, which means they can be much more autonomous, but they still need to work as part of the team and work in the way that's suitable to the company, which is why I have such a focus on like processes that most companies run on, data, processes, and teamwork, which are like three components we're trying to solve for. So I completely agree there. And maybe, I mean, the nuance there that you're saying is that, hey, maybe some jobs will actually be fully done by AI, but they will then have a manager, or they will then have another colleague. So they won't be the only developer in the team. You'll also have the human developer. And of course, in that situation, you'll have division of responsibilities shifting so that the AI agent does what it's best at, and the people do what they're best at any given point in time. So completely agree there. And I think that's a really valuable nuance. The second thing for me is that I actually, which maybe doesn't contradict what you said when you reflected on the year, but it's at least differentiates what I think will be happening going forward, which is that multi-agent collaboration will really take off. I mean, that's again one of our big bets, right? That because AI models are good at different things, right? And because you have value from them working together with people, or collaborating to get a better result with people, that same will hold true, and we see that holding true for different agents, because where you're trying to package everything as one agent, you're going to get less results just because of the nature of how intelligence works, which is that actually intelligence isn't general. I mean, you can argue that IQ is general. It's a very big predictor of your proficiency to become good at different things, right? And the IQ of the models will just go up. But that's still like intelligence is actually specific, that you're good at something specific. And you might argue that general intelligence just being able to become very good at many different specific things, but you still need those specialized agents. And because the agents are specialized and the models are good at different things that power them, and they use different tool sets and different models for different things, then you're going to have really start to see the value of teams of agents. And then, of course, feeding back to my first point, teams of agents and people really taking off as a thing. And I think that's really where I'm most excited about the UX changes, which is like, what does the UX for a team of agents and people look like? And of course we have our bet, but I'm sure there's going to be many different approaches to that question. But I think that's going to be one of the big questions that the ecosystem tries to answer in the next year.
Yeah. So my next trend spotting for next year is a bit of a boring one with big implications. Just as a reminder to both of us and the listener that the cost of inference will be cut by another magnitude. Like it will go down from what it is now to 1/10 on the same level of intelligence, and that just means that we can do for the same cost 10 times as many calls, or 10 times bigger context, or like we can do a lot more with the same intelligence. Like models doesn't have to be smarter for our services to be smarter. We can use a lot more intelligence. We can allow our chain of thoughts to branch out into tree of thoughts instead. It would be awesome to see, even if there's no new GPT-5 model, it would be awesome to see an O2 model with branching a tree of thoughts with tool use in different branches. So you could try, okay, we're going to use a bunch of different tools in different branches to see what tool provides the best results. And that, of course, doesn't have to happen inside a model. That can happen in your agent framework of choice. And so that's what I'm excited about, even though just as a trend, like the cost gonna keep going down. It's very boring as a trend spotting.
No, I think that's really valuable to remind us of. And if I would just add on to that, because I completely agree, the other part of that coin is latency, so speed.
Yes.
I think that, or I'd be very disappointed, I will say. I'm not sure if I could predict this, but I'd be very disappointed if Grok with a Q is still 10 times faster than everything else out there by the end of the year. I mean, we're going to use them, but like, it's so fast. And if you think about then as agents that are becoming better and better, have access to more and more data and more tools, and now the cost of each step that agent takes is going down by 90%, as you said, and the speed is going up by 10x.
Yes.
Then like imagine like how much work you can have an agent do, or a team of agents do, before presenting anything to us as people to sort of evaluate. Yep. So I think that's like the mega trend, or the two mega trends maybe, that really support the agentic revolution. The inference time compute scaling vector is almost like a function of those two more fundamental trends in capability. I think that's all I had actually for this one. Do you have any last reflections?
Yeah, one more. My last one, I think, is just like on the UI side, that this year, in 2024, we saw a lot of, like, the chat paradigm was augmented by the document paradigm, where you have a document beside, like, as a workspace, and right next to your AI chat, and it's not only Anthropic and Openai adding that, but it's also the paradigm of V0 and of all the coding assistants like Cursor, and also of just the different kinds of UI assistants that are out there, like Bolt and the agents coming from Replit and so on, that has a document space to work on alongside with the chat. So to augment your point on teamwork and AI, I think that we will see new interfaces coming. When is the first Trello-like interface for AI coming, or the first I don't know, Gantt chart with an AI operating it? I think that's going to be awesome to see on the if not next year, then further down in the future.
No, we'll do that during next year. We'll definitely have a like a Kanban board, a table, maybe a Canvas. Canvas is actually tougher, but I think maybe we can get that done as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, completely agree. Thanks. This has been fun, Martin. And I mean, it's a bit early to say that now, since we have a delay in our release, like by a week. But otherwise, I mean, Merry Christmas to the listener as well. I hope you have really good holidays, and thanks for thanks for listening. I really appreciate having this time every week. Actually, it really helps me understand and explore.
Yes, definitely.
World. Yeah.
And we will be taking a break for the holidays, and we will be back by the end of January or beginning of February. Thank you so much, Rasmus, and thank you to our dear listener. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and take care over the winter.